1 in 6 people in the UK have some sort of hearing loss. I started to lose my hearing at the age of 50, and subsequently it got worse and worse until 2019, when the Norfolk and Norwich Hospital recommended that I go to Addenbrooke's for a cochlear implant, and that restored my hearing from about 3% of normal to 89%. So I had my hearing completely restored, and obviously I wanted to give something back to the Norfolk and Norwich Hospital, so I decided to volunteer. I attended the interview or a meeting with the volunteer department, and that was interesting. They asked me where I wanted to volunteer, and subsequently, because I had previously worked for probation and was used to dealing with people face to face, I wanted to go to A&E. But one thing I will say, that in the hospital there's so many departments that you can volunteer in, right from reception, clerical work, phone work, working on the wards, anywhere in the hospital. You can basically fit your abilities into what you're good at, and that's why I volunteered to A&E. When I got to A&E, I found that I had to learn what was best to do there, and priority, I was dealing with people coming off the ambulances, so it was getting trolleys ready and preparing beds. But one of the most important things that I found was actually talking to patients, because they were coming off the ambulances, and it could be a stroke, it could be an accident, it could be anything, a heart attack, and sometimes people didn't know exactly where they were. So part of the whole thing I found rewarding in A&E was being able to talk to people and doing the things that the staff, the doctors and nurses didn't have time to do. So I've had a couple of really nice experiences there. One lady said to me, "What do you do here?" And I'd spoken to her during the morning, and I said, "Oh, I'm just a volunteer." And she turned on me and said, "No, you're not just a volunteer, you're a volunteer." And it was quite emotional. And one other thing, I suppose recently, that stuck in my mind, a lady came in and she was 96, and she'd had a fall, and she was creating some quite emotional and noise in the cubicle she was in. So I went in to talk to her, and she was saying, "Well, what am I doing here? I don't want to be here. Get me out of this hospital. Put that bed down, the side of the bed down." And I did explain to her I couldn't do that, and she was still carrying on, so I carried just talking to her, asked about her family, did they know where she was, and she then sort of carried on, still a bit angry. My son lives in Manchester, and so I explained that the nursing home would get in touch with her, and I gradually talked to her, and then she started to cry, and I just held her hand, and then she told me that she wanted to die, and I carried on holding her hand and talked to her, and she told me what she did as a job and what she did in the war, and gradually she really calmed down. And come the time the nurses came to take her down to have an x-ray, she just turned to me and said, "You're so kind." And that's the reward that you get from volunteering. It's not just helping out the doctors and nurses, but the reward of talking to patients and dealing with people. And one of the things that the doctors and nurses often say to me is that, "Oh, thank you ever so much for helping." And I just say to them always that, no, it should be me thanking you.